I need to tell you something that's been keeping me awake at night. A disturbing realization that haunts the quiet hours between darkness and dawn. It is something that violates every assumption we've made about our cosmic neighborhood, about the nature of intelligence in the universe, and perhaps most disturbing of all, about who has been watching us all along. Before we begin this journey into the unknown, I need you to do something for me. Comment your city name below and tell me, have you noticed anything unusual in the night sky recently? Have you seen any objects that don't move like satellites? Any patterns in the stars that seem deliberate or artificial? NASA is quietly collecting civilian observations, and what I'm about to share may change the way you see humanity's place in the universe forever. My name is Michio Kaku, and for over 4 decades, I have studied the cosmos through the rigorous, unforgiving lens of theoretical physics. I've spent my life calculating probabilities, analyzing data, and speaking about string theory, parallel universes, and the future of civilization with the calm certainty that comes from mathematics. But what happened 3 months ago with 3 Atlas, an interstellar object we thought we understood, has shattered that certainty completely. And what followed it, what is still following it, has forced me to confront a possibility I once dismissed as statistically improbable, the stuff of science fiction. We are not alone, we have never been alone, and something out there has just made its first move. Let me take you back to where this began, because the origin of this discovery is as important as the discovery itself. In December, the ATLAS survey, the Asteroid Terrestrial Impact Last Alert System, detected what initially appeared to be another unremarkable comet in the outer reaches of our solar system. We designated it 3 Atlas, the third confirmed interstellar object to pass through our cosmic neighborhood, following the mysterious Oumuamua in 2017 and the comet 2I Borisov in 2019. At first, it seemed to follow the script we'd written for interstellar visitors, a hyperbolic trajectory indicating it originated from beyond our sun's gravitational influence, moving at approximately 34 kilometers per second relative to our solar system's barycenter. It looked standard, predictable, and unremarkable. But I have learned something in my years studying the universe. When things appear too standard, too predictable, that is precisely when you should look closer. And someone at NASA's Jet Propulsion Laboratory did exactly that. Dr. Sarah Chen, a trajectory analyst I've had the privilege of knowing for nearly a decade, noticed something in the telemetry data that simply didn't align with the accepted models. 3 Atlas was exhibiting what we call non-gravitational acceleration, a phenomenon we have observed before in comets, typically explained by outgassing as solar radiation heats their icy surfaces, creating thrust like a natural rocket engine. However, the acceleration profile of 3 Atlas was wrong. The magnitude was too consistent, too controlled, and it was occurring in the wrong parts of its trajectory, specifically in regions where solar heating couldn't account for the observed forces. Sarah ran the numbers 17 times. Each time the conclusion was the same. Something was influencing 3 Atlas's path that couldn't be explained by known physics. Something was either pushing it, pulling it, or the object itself was making course corrections. That is when the classified briefing happened. That is when everything changed. I wasn't supposed to be in that room. My security clearance, while substantial due to my government advisory work, typically doesn't extend to active tracking operations of near-Earth objects. But I received a call at 2:47 in the morning from a former student who now works in the Office of Planetary Defense. His voice was shaking when he asked me if I could be on a secure video conference in 30 minutes. He wouldn't tell me why. He just said, "Professor, you need to see what's behind it." Behind it. Those 2 words carried an implication that made my blood run cold even before I understood their full meaning. Interstellar objects don't have things behind them. They don't travel in formation. They don't have companions. They are cosmic wanderers, gravitationally ejected from their home systems billions of years ago, tumbling through the void in isolation until they happen to pass through another star's domain. The probability of two interstellar objects arriving at our solar system at the same time on the same trajectory is so infinitesimally small that it shouldn't happen in the lifetime of our galaxy. But probability, I was about to learn, has no authority over intention. When I joined that video conference at 3:15 a.m., there were 47 other participants, most of them representing agencies whose acronyms I recognized, CIA, NSA, DIA, but whose functions remain classified. The moderator was someone from the Department of Defense, not NASA, which immediately told me this had escalated beyond scientific curiosity into national security territory. The screen showed what appeared to be a standard orbital plot. The sun at the center, planetary orbits marked in faint lines, and a bright trajectory cutting through the ecliptic plane at an extreme angle. That was 3 Atlas. Then the operator zoomed out. Behind 3 Atlas, separated by approximately 0.08 astronomical units, about 12 million kilometers, was another object. But unlike 3 Atlas, which showed the irregular light curve typical of a rotating comet nucleus, this object maintained a constant luminosity. It wasn't reflecting sunlight like a tumbling rock. It was steady, controlled, and its trajectory wasn't just similar to 3 Atlas, it was identical. It matched the comet's path with a precision that suggested active guidance, continuous adjustment, and intentional following. Someone in the conference asked the question we were all thinking: is it possible this is a natural satellite of the comet, a fragment that broke off during its journey? The answer came from Dr. James Martinez, a planetary scientist at Caltech who specializes in celestial mechanics. No, he said, his voice flat. The separation distance has been constant for the entire observation period. If this were a fragment or satellite, we'd see orbital motion, periodic variation in distance. This object is actively maintaining its position relative to 3 Atlas. It's station keeping, a term we use for artificial satellites maintaining precise orbits around Earth, a term that has no place in discussions of natural cosmic phenomena, a term that means someone is piloting that object. I remember the silence that followed. It lasted perhaps 10 seconds, but it felt like an hour. In that silence, I believe all of us were doing the same internal calculation, arriving at the same impossible conclusion, and then desperately searching for any alternative explanation that didn't require us to accept what the data was clearly showing. We were looking at artificial intelligence, extraterrestrial intelligence, an alien probe. But the story gets stranger, so much stranger that even now, knowing what I know, part of my mind rebels against accepting it. Over the next 3 weeks, we watched this mystery object with every instrument we could point at it. The Hubble Space Telescope was retasked from its scheduled observations. The James Webb Space Telescope, still in its commissioning phase for certain advanced instruments, was turned to focus on this cosmic interloper. Ground-based observatories from Hawaii to Chile were coordinated in a continuous monitoring campaign. And what we learned in those 3 weeks has fundamentally altered my understanding of what it means to be observed. The object's size was difficult to determine precisely because it didn't behave like normal matter. Radar returns from the Goldstone Deep Space Network suggested something approximately 340 meters in length, but the radar cross-section kept changing in ways that indicated either a morphing geometry or some kind of adaptive surface metamaterial designed to scatter signals. Spectroscopic analysis showed no outgassing, no comet-like activity, and a reflectance spectrum that didn't match any known asteroid composition. The surface appeared to be absorbing light across most wavelengths, with occasional spikes in the infrared that suggested internal heat generation, waste heat from a power source. It was approximately 10 days into our observation campaign when the object did something that removed all doubt about its artificial nature. It changed course. Not the gentle, predictable course correction you might expect from outgassing or tidal forces. This was a deliberate, powered maneuver. Over a period of 4 hours, the object's trajectory shifted by 0.3 degrees. To put that in perspective, that is like turning a cruise ship traveling at highway speeds in the middle of the ocean without any visible propulsion, without any exhaust plume, without any detectable thrust signature. The object simply moved, and it moved toward us. Not dramatically, not in a way that suggested an immediate threat or rapid approach, but its new trajectory, when extrapolated forward, would bring it closer to Earth's orbital path. It was making a correction to get a better look at us. I need you to understand what this meant. 3 Atlas was continuing on its original hyperbolic trajectory, destined to exit our solar system within 6 months and return to the void of interstellar space. But this object, this follower, this probe, it was deviating from that path. It was making a choice to investigate the one planet in our solar system that shows unmistakable signs of a technological civilization. The planet that floods space with radio signals, that has transformed its atmospheric composition in ways visible from interstellar distances, that glows with artificial light on its night side like a beacon announcing the presence of intelligence. It was coming to look at us. And that is when I realized we had been looking at this backwards the entire time. We thought 3 Atlas was the object of interest, and this probe was simply following it. But what if 3 Atlas was the delivery vehicle? What if this comet, this apparently natural interstellar wanderer, was deliberately sent to our solar system with something hidden in its wake, using the comet as cover, as camouflage, as a Trojan horse to slip past our defenses and our detection capabilities? What if we've been invaded and we didn't even notice until it was already here? This theory gained substantial credibility 3 days after the course change, when something unprecedented occurred. The object began emitting a signal. I need to be very careful with how I describe this, because much of the data remains classified, and I am bound by non-disclosure agreements that limit what I can publicly disclose. But I can tell you this: the signal was not radio frequency. It was not electromagnetic in any conventional sense. The detection came from gravitational wave observatories, specifically LIGO and Virgo, which picked up periodic fluctuations in spacetime itself emanating from the object's location. These weren't the catastrophic ripples produced by colliding black holes or neutron stars. These were subtle, precise, modulated distortions in the fabric of reality itself. Someone was manipulating gravity. Someone was using the curvature of space-time as a communication medium. The frequency of these gravitational pulses was approximately 1,420 megahertz. The hydrogen line, the frequency of the most abundant element in the universe, the frequency that SETI researchers have long speculated would be a logical choice for any civilization attempting interstellar communication. But this wasn't a radio signal at that frequency. This was space-time itself, oscillating at a rate that, if translated to electromagnetic waves, would correspond to that frequency. It was a message encoded in the language of the universe, in the fundamental structure of reality itself. We had no idea what it was saying. Teams of cryptographers, linguists, mathematicians, and computer scientists worked around the clock to analyze the signal structure. The pulses were clearly artificial, too regular, too patterned to be any natural phenomenon. There were repetitions, variations, what appeared to be data packets separated by intervals that suggested intentional formatting, but without any context, without any Rosetta Stone to provide translation. We were staring at an alien language with no hope of immediate comprehension. That was until someone noticed the timing. Dr. Elena Rotova, a Russian mathematician who had been consulting on the project, observed that the intervals between certain pulse groups corresponded to fundamental mathematical constants. The ratio of one interval to another matched pi, another matched Euler's number, another matched the fine structure constant, a dimensionless value that describes the strength of electromagnetic interaction. The signal was bootstrapping itself, establishing a common mathematical framework, teaching us its language by starting with universal truths that any technological civilization would recognize. This was first contact, and it was being conducted in mathematics, the only truly universal language. Over the next 72 hours, we began to understand fragments of the message. The signal contained what appeared to be coordinates, not spatial coordinates in 3 dimensions, but space-time coordinates in 4 dimensions, referencing specific events in Earth's recent history. The detonation of the first atomic bomb in 1945, the launch of Sputnik in 1957, the Voyager spacecraft crossing into interstellar space, the detection of gravitational waves in 2015. The signal was referencing moments when humanity's technological capability became visible at interstellar distances, moments when we announced our presence to the universe. They had been watching us, listening to us, tracking our progress for at least 80 years, possibly longer. Someone had been monitoring our species as we crawled from planetary infancy toward technological adolescence. But the most disturbing part of the message came in what we have started calling the quarantine protocol. Embedded within the mathematical structures were what appeared to be boundary conditions, spatial limits defined by distances from our sun. When these were mapped, they formed a sphere approximately 2 light-years in radius centered on our solar system. Within that sphere, the signal indicated one set of conditions using symbols we have tentatively interpreted as permitted or allowed. Outside that boundary, the symbols changed to what might mean restricted or forbidden. We are inside a galactic quarantine zone. Humanity, our entire civilization, our solar system has been enclosed in a cosmic boundary that restricts something, our expansion, our contact, our very awareness of what exists beyond. And this probe, this object following 3 Atlas, appears to be some kind of enforcement mechanism, a guardian checking on the perimeter, ensuring the boundary remains intact. But why? What are they protecting? Are they protecting the galaxy from us, or are they protecting us from something in the galaxy? I have spent countless hours since then contemplating this question, and I keep returning to a disturbing possibility. Every technological civilization faces what we call the Great Filter, some existential challenge that prevents species from reaching galactic colonization, from becoming truly interstellar. The universe is billions of years old. Intelligent life should have arisen countless times, spread across the galaxy, made its presence obvious. The fact that we don't see evidence of widespread alien civilization suggests that something prevents species from reaching that stage. Something filters them out. What if the quarantine is the filter? What if there is something about the galaxy, about interstellar space, about contact with other civilizations that is so dangerous, so inevitably fatal to emerging species that someone older, someone wiser, has implemented a protective barrier? What if the cosmic silence we have always wondered about isn't because we are alone or because civilizations destroy themselves, but because someone is deliberately keeping young civilizations isolated until they are ready for something we can't even imagine? Or worse, what if we are the danger? What if humanity's particular brand of intelligence, our specific cognitive architecture, our aggressive tribalism, our way of processing reality and pursuing goals represents some kind of existential threat to galactic civilization? What if we are being contained, not protected, because letting us expand into the galaxy would be catastrophic? I don't have answers to these questions. I don't think anyone does. But I can tell you what happened next and why I have chosen to speak about this now, despite the personal and professional consequences. 18 days ago, the mystery object stopped transmitting its gravitational signal. The pulses simply ceased without warning. without any apparent pattern or conclusion to the message. For 3 days, we detected nothing. The object continued its slow approach toward Earth's orbital path, but remained silent. We waited, watched, analyzed the previous transmissions, and wondered if we had somehow responded incorrectly, if our attempts to send reply signals had offended or alarmed whoever was controlling that probe. Then, 15 days ago, it split. What we thought was a single object revealed itself to be at least 7 distinct components, each separating from the others in a carefully choreographed deployment pattern that took approximately 6 hours to complete. These components arranged themselves in a geometric formation, specifically a heptagon, with the original central mass at the center and 6 peripheral objects at the vertices. The formation maintained its shape and orientation despite the complex gravitational dynamics of the inner solar system, which should have disrupted any natural clustering. Each peripheral object then began its own course correction, moving away from the central formation on trajectories that our analysts quickly realized corresponded to the 6 major gravitational influence zones of our solar system's planets. One headed toward Jupiter, another toward Saturn, one toward Venus, one toward Mars, one toward the asteroid belt, and one made a significant burn that will bring it within 0.05 astronomical units of Earth, about 19 times the distance to our moon, in approximately 40 days. We are about to receive a visit. The classification level of this information went from secret to top secret to something above top secret that doesn't even have a public name. Discussion of response options began immediately at the highest levels of government, involving not just the United States, but a coalition of nations that includes China, Russia, the European Union, India, and Japan. What do you do when an alien probe decides to examine your planet up close? Do you attempt communication? Do you demonstrate peaceful intent? Do you prepare defensive options? Do you tell the public? Or do you maintain secrecy to prevent panic? These discussions are ongoing. I am not privy to the final decisions being made, but I am involved in one aspect of this that I can share with you, and it is why I am speaking to you today. We have been analyzing the original gravitational wave signal, the hours of transmission before it ceased, and we found something embedded deep within the mathematical structures that we initially missed. It is not part of the main message. It is more like metadata, like the header information in a digital file. And when decoded, it contains a timestamp, not based on Earth's rotation or our calendar system, but based on a universal clock, the rate of cosmic expansion, the Hubble constant, measuring time by how much the universe itself has grown since some reference point. When we calculated what that timestamp means in Earth years, we got a disturbing answer. The signal was sent 127 years ago. Whatever transmitted that message to us began its broadcast in 1898, long before we had the technology to detect gravitational waves, long before we even understood that gravity was a curvature of space-time. The message we received 18 days ago was actually sent more than a century earlier, traveling through space at the speed of gravity, which we believe to be the speed of light, from a source that was already monitoring our civilization. When the Wright brothers were still experimenting with gliders, they knew we would eventually develop the capacity to detect their message. They sent it preemptively, timed to arrive precisely when we had achieved that capability. This level of prediction, this ability to forecast the technological trajectory of an alien species across more than a century, suggests either profound understanding of how intelligence evolves or the experience of watching it happen countless times before with countless other species. We are not their first. We may not even be their most interesting. And this brings me to why I felt compelled to share this information despite the protocols, despite the classifications, despite the potential consequences for my career and reputation. Yesterday, I received a message not through official channels, not through the classified networks, but through my public university email account. The sender's address was gibberish, a string of random characters that routing analysis suggests was spoofed through servers scattered across 17 countries. The message contained a single image file. It was a photograph of the night sky taken from somewhere with minimal light pollution, showing the constellation Orion in sharp detail. But there was something added to the image: 7 red circles highlighting 7 stars in and around Orion. When I ran those star positions through astronomical databases, I found something that made my hands shake. All 7 stars are within 35 light-years of Earth. All 7 have planets in their habitable zones that we have detected through transit observations. All 7 have shown anomalous spectroscopic signatures in their atmospheres, biosignatures, technosignatures, signs of industrial activity or atmospheric engineering, and all 7, when connected on a 3-dimensional star map, form the same heptagonal geometry that the probe's components arranged themselves into 15 days ago. That is why I am telling you this. That is why I am violating the protocols and risking the consequences. Because this isn't just a matter for governments and militaries and classified committees. This is about the future of our species, about our place in a cosmos that is far stranger and more regulated than we ever imagined. And every person deserves to know that the sky above them contains not just stars and planets, but watchers, guardians, authorities who have been monitoring us since before anyone alive today was born. You deserve to know that we are not alone, that we have never been alone, that something vast and ancient and incomprehensible has been shepherding our species, for better or worse, towards some purpose we don't yet understand. You deserve to know that everything changes in 40 days. Follow this channel as we continue decoding the universe's final warnings. In the coming days and weeks, I will share more information as it becomes available to me, as classification levels are reconsidered, as the probe approaches and its intentions become clearer. This conversation is just beginning. The implications will unfold for years, decades, perhaps centuries, but right now, tonight, I want you to do something for me. Go outside if you can. Look up at the night sky. Find Orion if it is visible from your location and ask yourself, what am I not seeing? What has been there all along, watching me, that I have been trained not to notice, conditioned to dismiss as satellites or airplanes or imagination? What is really up there? And more importantly, when it finally reveals itself fully, when the quarantine dissolves or the watchers step forward, when everything we thought we knew about our place in the universe is overturned in a single moment of cosmic contact, who will we become?